let take you by the hand, let him dress you wound. He can make a lot of dead things in your life. Not every death deserves a tomb. So it speaks to that little girl in you, from that little boy in you. It speaks to that dream in you, whatever it is. It has to live.
Wow. Arise. Arise. And I like me put dream, that vision, that thing in you that God has in you.
Yes.
And that is so fitting and connected to the purpose of this podcast, to press it to us stuck, to tell them to arise. It's time to arise. Wow, that is powerful.
Very time.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Pregnant with Destiny podcast. This podcast is for kingdom-minded citizens, purpose-driven people, faith-minded person who want and need to identify their gifts, their calling, and to unleash their calling and their gifts into the marketplace. Whether to start ministries, whether to start businesses, online businesses, whether to develop kingdom-based project, whatever it is that God has called you to do, this podcast is to help you to get unstuck, to help you to give birth. And I am so pleased and excited because we have an awesome guest in the house, in our session, and we're going to have an awesome conversation. And I'm going to let her introduce herself to us and let her tell us who she is. Frankelle, introduce yourself to our guests.
Hi, everyone. My name is Frankelle Outten. First of all, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity, for finding me to be great enough to interview. It's that great intro. So about me, I am of God. I'm a worshiper. I'm also creative. I love to create. And that has allowed me to tap over into many streams. One being, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a digital billboard advertising company, as well as a cute bakery business that everyone knows for the best cheesecakes. Frank bakes too. My billboard advertising company is called Nexus Advantage Connect. It's in Freeport. Everyone knows it for the billboard that's at the corner, the intersection of the Fishing Hole Road and Queens Highway. So we put advertising of all sorts on the billboard for businesses, anniversaries, birthdays, events. So away from the business side, like I said, I'm a creative and I also sing, and I have my single that has been out for almost a year. In April will make a year since I released my single. That's a little bit about me. Like I said, I love to create, so I also love to do art. I love to draw and paint. Anything creative, you'll find me there. Fashionable, all of that stuff.
Wow. You sound like you wear many hats. That's awesome. Tell us about your business. You're a very young person, a believer. Tell us about that. In your business, how did you get started? And what advice would you give to other young persons?
Yes, the journey to starting my business was challenging and rewarding. I say that because it took a lot to get started in this industry, particularly in Grand Bahama. There were certain regulations that had to be met. And even before that, I had to present and have my business proposal vetted in order to be selected as a license to operate digital signage in the Bahamas, in Grand Bahama. So that was a bit challenging, but also rewarding, because starting that business in Grand Bahama, them awarding the licenses to 4 of us, it charted a different path that we're not used to in the marketing and advertisement industry in Grand Bahama. So it's very rewarding to say that I was a part of something new, innovative to the city of Freeport, and also rewarding in the sense that it pulled out some things out of me that I didn't know I had within me. The stickability, the ability to not give up, to continue trying when there were challenges, even when I had to present before a board of people by myself. All of these things built another version of Frankelle. So that was my advice to anyone else following a similar path would be to not be afraid to chart a new path, but also immerse yourself into something that you're not used to. My background educationally, I studied biology in college, biology, chemistry, and psychology. So it's a lot different from marketing and advertisement. Different. You get there. Maybe you'll ask me later in the interview, so I'll leave that for you. It's a lot different from that. You might have expected something else, but not like. But although it's a lot different, me being immersed in sciences and having that background knowledge, it still played a role in just navigating the business that I'm in now. So I would just suggest to any young person, pursue whatever it is that's on your heart. Don't give up. It was about 8 years for me before I officially launched the business. And it was 8 years of praying, 8 years of believing God. And I think I have to just by telling how I really got started.
Yes.
Remember, I'm a woman of faith. I believe in God. So anything I do, He's really the springboard for anything I do. So going back to when I first got the idea, I was praying to God for a business idea. Not just because I wanted to be a businesswoman at the time. I always knew that was the plans for me. But I thought it would be graduate college and get all my other goals. But I was struggling at the time. I was in college and I just, I think I need to tap into business to relieve myself of some of the financial burden I'm experiencing. So I could just have an easier time in college or maybe even fund my next phase of education. I started praying for a business idea and I was praying regarding things that I knew I could do already. Like I mentioned, I'm creative. I like to draw. I like to do things, bake cheesecakes, whatever I could do. That's what I was on. God said to me, pray specifically what you want. Pray a prayer. So I said, I want a business idea that has the potential to make a lot of money. I don't have to physically be there for it 24/7 because at the time I was in home. I don't have to hire a whole lot of people for it unless I want to. No. And also, it was one other request. I can't remember at the moment, but it would seem like it's a reasonable prayer. It was me that. But God, so I said, God, this is what I want. In my head, it doesn't make sense, and I think it was about a week later, God downloaded, just in a time alone, just downloaded billboards, and that really sparked it. From then, I started doing research, and I think the 8-year time frame really allowed me a chance to get to know the industry. Like I said, it was new to me. So from the time I got the idea to when it actually was birthed and manifested, I had a lot of time to, first of all, grasp the fact that, okay, God gave you this idea for a purpose. What you initially asked for, because remember, I was 21 at the time. It was one day be a businesswoman, but at the time I was like, God, I just need something to help me get my foot in. But it's to be much greater than that. So,
wow. So was your journey easy? Was just great and just nice? Was the road just smooth? All the doors open up. Was your journey easy?
That would have been very nice, but no. My journey wasn't easy, but I know they always say nothing good comes easy, and that's a very cliche phrase that I can use in this moment, but it is cliche. I believe, especially when God gives you something, when God gives you a mandate or an instruction, it often is met with challenges. Almost like it's as if the world is set up to challenge the thing that God instructed you to do, but not just to stop you or to oppose you, but also to build you on.
Yeah.
My answer is twofold. Yes, it was challenging. It wasn't easy, but it also was rewarding in a sense that it built me up. Like I mentioned to you, it was an 8-year time frame. So from the time that I initially approached the Grand Bahama Port Authority until when I actually was able to do it, it was about 8 years. So there was a lot of waiting, a lot of uncertainty. You had the pandemic and COVID-19 and Dorian. So what's happening in that 8-year time frame? I graduated college and was trying my next steps. So all of this while still holding on to this dream. I
The
had a
strength.
vision that God gave me. So not working easy.
Wow. And you said it built you. What did it build in you? What did it build in Frankelle?
It definitely built resilience. It built them the courage to stand even think the door is closed, continue knocking. It built up my faith in God. Because if I'm honest, I continued to pursue is because I truly believed and knew at that time that God told me, God gave me the idea, God told me to pursue this. So the way I saw it, okay, God, if you told me, then there's something here. I have to continue to press forward and pursue it. So that's how it was for me.
That
Yeah.
resilience, it builds your faith. Wow.
Absolutely.
Tell us about Frankelle the Worshiper. That's another side of you. Tell us about Frankelle the Worshiper.
Frankelle the Worship, first of all, that starts from an intimate place. When we think about what worship truly is, worship is unto God, unto our Savior. So it, first of all, comes from an intimate place. We're created to worship. As children of God, we're created to worship our Savior. He says to worship Him in all that you do. So even as we work, as we do our day-to-day, we're still worshiping Him. So I have to start there. It started from an intimate place. I could remember my early times in just worship in the musical sense, just spending a long time in the room, just sitting on my bed, just crying out and singing melodies, Lord, just going on YouTube and discovering songs that just kind of get me into that moment of tapping into His presence. That was my earliest memory of just fostering that lifestyle of worship as an adult. My earlier memory as a little girl in church, standing up and feeling the goosebumps, but not really knowing what to do in the moment. I'm just standing there and I'm feeling it and I'm fighting whatever it is that might be causing me to want to move a little bit, or as a child, really understand how to navigate that space. But I knew that I was the Father in the moment, and as the worship team will be singing in church, I'm feeling the goosebumps, but I'm just there staring and just in my mind, just sing to God in my own way at that time, at that age. So the lifestyle definitely progressed for me, and it really took root, and I got a deeper revelation of it as an adult. And that eventually led on to me receiving melodies from God where I would birth songs. So you over my life. Well, so far I have one song that has been released, and the story of how that came about, yes, a parental attendee, now I can say regular attendee, multiple Galentine Vibes conferences, I guess 2 to 3 years now. My first in-person one was in 2023, before I also attended, but in 2024, before I attended, it was prophesied by who is the leader of Wifer Ministry, which is the ministry that Galentine Vibes, the conference, is birth, which is a women's conference that's in different every year. So she prophesied that she saw me singing a song over the women in the room, and the theme here, which was the 2024 conference, was Talitha Cole, Daughter Arise. And that, as with anything else, I was like, okay, God, if you said it, I give you run with it. Tell me, give me. I didn't want to put any fleshly effort in it, if that makes sense. I didn't want to put any of myself in it. I didn't want to make it happen, so to speak. So I just allowed God to have His way. And just like the business idea, one day I was in actually, and He downloaded the chorus of the song just in my spirit, in my hearing. I could just hear it playing. And long story short, after that prayer, I recorded it on my phone, and it just took off from there. He gave me the rest of the song eventually throughout that time frame before the conference. Play it for the first time an audience at the conference. And thereafter, God swung open the doors wide for me to record it officially and have it produced.
Wow.
So the conference was in February. In April, I recorded and released the song. So,
wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Tell us some of the words of the song.
So the chorus goes, Talitha Kumai, Talitha Kum, I, daughter, arise. A lot of people don't realize that it's Talitha Kum, I, daughter, arise. So out, my arise to the light of His glory. This is your story. So that's the chorus. It's from the scripture where Jesus raised the little girl from the dead. He said to her, Talitha Kum, a daughter, arise, and she did. That's just the chorus. The song, which would be the verse, is let him take by the hand, let him dress you on. He can make a lot of dead things in your life. Not every death deserves a tomb. So it speaks to that little girl in you, from that little boy in you. It speaks to that dream in you, whatever it is, and how to live.
Wow. Arise. Arise. And I like me put dream, that vision, that thing in you that God is in you.
Yes.
And that is so fitting and connected to the purpose of this podcast, to press it to us stuck, to tell them, arise. It's time to arise. Wow. That is powerful.
Very time.
So what would you say to a young woman like yourself, feels she's stuck and she feels lost, that she doesn't know where to turn to, and what would you say to her? If you had opportunity just to sit down with her one-on-one, what would you say to her?
I would say, I'll tie this to a situation I actually dealt with in real life. I was a college student in the U.S. and something happened that literally could have threatened my continuing with my education. And I had never experienced anything like that before, and I didn't see any solution. And I remember going in the bathroom and I fell down on the floor. I laid down and I was crying and just, almost like literally like a fetal position, just crying, just distraught. And I heard God said loudly to me. And at this time, I can't even say I would hear the voice of God as often, as powerfully. And I heard God say, still, be still, God. As soon as I heard that, it's like everything in me sobered up. And the reason I share that is because a lot of times when we see like we're in that place of turmoil, we don't know what to do. We see it like we're going nowhere. Or we see it moving, which is also not going anywhere. We feel stuck, or we feel like we're going in circles, whatever it may be. I think the biggest thing that you can do in that moment is be still, understand your identity, understand why God put you here. And I know sometimes that might sound even daunting, like, okay, understand my purpose. Well, how do I do that? As you continue to develop your relationship with God, I promise you, trust Him and He will show you, He will direct you. It may not be the exact moment in time that you expect to receive the aha, but I know if you allow Him to open up your understanding, He'll reveal things to you. For me, practically came through. Sometimes He would allow people to confirm it. Sometimes He would allow the situations themselves to confirm it. And I know I have a lot of testimonies from college, but when the college that I graduated from with my bachelor's, God told me to apply there. And at the time, it seemed crazy. I had no money to look at the cheaper schools, let alone the one He was telling me to apply to. Miami, some people like there. And I was, can't be God. So I felt in that season of my life, I felt like I need to continue my education. I was just getting done with my associates, which meant I needed to move on and finish my bachelor's, but I felt stuck.
You think?
But I had instruction from God. That's it. Yeah. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. God had a purpose in going to that school. I did it at the time, and I was happy with the idea, but I couldn't see how I would even afford to go there, how I would even get accepted. I think the acceptance rate was, I could be wrong, it's been a long time, but maybe 20%. It was low. So I also didn't feel confident to be accepted. So I started that season as being stuck. However, at the last minute. I think the deadline was March 6th, I believe, to apply. I applied 11:59 on the dot. Like, that's how much I was wrestling with God. Like, this can't be God. I don't know if my little Christian walk here in God. That's the way I was looking at it. Like, me? Did I have God?
Yeah. Really? Yeah.
But it was him, and I decided the way I applied, and they were the first persons out of everywhere I applied to, even the ones that had much higher acceptance rates. And in fact, I was in a program that would qualify me to automatically be accepted into some schools. And this acceptance to the school God told me to apply to was before all of them. So I shared a testimony to say, in that moment where I had no idea what I would do next, what would come next in my life, I had one instruction from God, which was tied to the purpose that He had for me. And that carried me through the season. It wasn't faith or something major, or it wasn't me seeing the manifestation of something first before I was out of that season. It was me being obedient to His path. So I would say, Bill, and remember that story that I said earlier, it was connected to an issue with my education at the time. That's when I was trying to my associates. And God said to me, Bill, and I completed that. And now into this next season, I had to be still and believe that it was directing me, and not get out of that. So again, my advice would be to hone in to what God is saying to you in that season about purpose. Allow Him to fuel your identity. Allow Him to show you who you are, what you were sent here for, and He'll continue to direct you.
Be still. That is one of my favorite verses. And for a long time, that was the favorite verse. It means to settle your mind, settle your spirit, and recognize that He's God. He's settled down. And
yes.
And that's sometimes very difficult in our world with so much distraction.
Yes.
So much things bombarding you and so much negative stuff. That verse is be still. And what would you say to the young person who's struggling with distractions, negative voices?
I had a lot of distractions myself, so definitely understand. So first of all, I'm saying this from a place of understanding. I would say to the person that's struggling with distractions to, first of all, don't allow yourself to be consumed by condemnation, because it's almost like this. You allow yourself to be distracted, you kind of get off course, and then you feel immensely guilty about it, and then that demotivates you, and then now have an even greater hold, and the cycle continues. So I would say, if you find yourself in a place where you're a little off course, don't allow yourself to be weighed down by condemnation and guilt and shame and, oh, I messed up, and how could I? A lot of those, because I, at least for me, I struggled with that for a long time, just always falling in that, like, wow, I messed up. I don't really have that motivation to pick myself up and continue. So if you do find yourself going off course, don't allow it to deter you or even get to your mind to cause you to slow down your steps. Continue walking. Imagine if you're driving, you have your hands on the steering wheel, you're focusing on the road, something distracts you to the left or to the right, you take a moment to look over. You're not going to keep looking over, because as long as it's turned over there, to whatever you can't see ahead of you. So the goal ahead of you will literally pull you back to say, hey, you know what? I don't have time to be worried about what's on the left or to the right. And in the same vein of not falling under heavy condemnation or guilt, something is calling me to the left or right while I'm driving, and I happen to look over. I can't wallow and say, wow, this thing catch my attention. I look over to the left. Let me just keep looking, because clearly I distracted and I go, no, you still are moving forward. The car is still moving. So I would just say, always pick yourself back up. And then practically, in terms of like time management and things like that, like find what works for you. Not everything is the same for every life and for every lifestyle. Sometimes what may mitigate a distraction for one person may not mitigate it for you. So you have to know what triggers you, what distracts you, and how you can tailor your life or your time or whatever it is to be able to fit your path, your lifestyle, so that you can avoid them. Like that's the practical thing to it, that you have to basically create an environment that allows you to do better the next time. So that's myself.
Thank you. Thank you, Frankelle. Thank you. You seem to like to travel. I've seen you so many different places. What about your world travels?
Oh Lord, world was, oh my goodness. All I can say is I'm blessed. Like God are blessed with, and highly favored. Honestly, it's not easy. Planning is nothing but the favor of God. And
wow,
everything that I'm saying tonight ties in with the other. So likewise, you probably saw my most recent trip which was that by way of me obeying God with going back to complete my master's, and that opened the door.
Wow.
Know how I would afford that trip, but God literally opened the doors that I didn't expect from strangers. Allow me to have that opportunity, and I can say that for so many other places I've been over. If I tell all the details of the story, it wouldn't make sense. It's a lot. If I don't say literally just that's been it, but it's been a very rewarding, I would call it, because I love to travel outside of just opportunities. I really love to travel, and not just because I want to see places. I love to immerse myself in another culture. I love to learn how other people think, and I feel like that would make me more powerful and effective in business when I get to learn how other people think and how the world works and how we're all interconnected, how we're so very the same, but also so very different.
Exactly.
That's what I love.
What are some of the places you've visited?
So my most recent international travel was to Thailand. Before that, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years before that, in 2021, I visited Cartagena, Colombia by myself. That was actually, again, because I paid like little to nothing to go on that trip. And then Colombia itself is very affordable. So that was a really lovely time. Prior to that, I lived in Aruba for 3 years. That was because of school. I went there to complete my medical education, which I had on pause, but I spent an amount of time there doing some of my studies. And aside of that, I've been to Jamaica. My family is part Jamaican, so that's a given. I have to go to Jamaica, right? I don't need no explanation. Other than that, I've been to Canada in the last year. That time fly by. Well, Fargo, but last year I went to Canada. Where Valentine vibes was 2023. Yes, so that's a few. Also, I can add these in. Thailand, that came with me having to travel to Turkey. So I visited. I spent there exploring the city, and by mistake, I ended up in Germany as well. So I spent by mistake. So much. Can't even begin to tell the story. I got stuck on my return flight and ended up on my return leg. So I first flight got stuck at sea, had to get another flight out, which happened to go through Germany. So I was able, and that even sparked my interest for Germany and getting to know different people. I had a perception of Germans before I went there, and it was totally different from what I perceived. I don't know if I expected them to be mean, but I just didn't expect them to be so warm. Everyone was so nice. I really liked it there for the short time that I spent.
Nice. And you talk about your background, family. I live in Jamaica for 3 years, so it's a beautiful place. Yeah, that's my way to school. I did my bachelor's in Jamaica.
Nice. At UWI?
So, University of West Indies.
Hey.
Yeah, so
wow, I went in.
But I enjoyed it. But your family background is business. How much did that play into you being a business person today?
So it definitely had its influences. Can't say if that was why I always said that I would be a doctor and a businesswoman. That was always my phrase from high school. I'm going to be a doctor and a businesswoman. So I dare to say it probably came from there, because I never saw any male in my family, not my daddy, not my uncles. I never saw any of them work for anyone. They were all business owners. And then my mom was always business minded, trying to find a thing to get into in terms of business. She's very good at managing business. So I would say that it came from there. I never really correlated to say, well, this is why I want to be a businesswoman. I think it was just innate because of my background.
Yeah.
But in terms of its influence, growing, watching my family in business, I learned the what to do and the what not to do.
Things like that.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a wealth of wisdom that I can glean from. A lot of people know my father, Edgar Sr., that passed away in 2016. He was a very strong and wise businessman. Not much formal education, but very skilled as a businessman and very successful. So he is an inspiration and an example that I can glean from even today. Even though the work is so much different, the path to success may be a little bit more bumpy or a little just different, a little more but the principles that he carried over into business from his life and just from his upbringing, all of those things I look back on and I glean. So I would say that's how it's influenced me.
Excellent. So you're a songwriter, you're a businesswoman, you're a world traveler. You've done your education, developed yourself. What's next for Frankelle?
That's a big phrase. Big question. I don't think too much on what's next on my own, I would say. Whatever has in store for me, I like to say, because so far my journey has not been what I had envisioned it would be. The same goal, but the road were different. So I don't really like to speak or put my own thoughts and my own ideas as to what's next. I'm excited for the ride because I know whatever God does, whatever surprise or curveball he throws is going to be beautiful. But in terms of what I'm doing now, in terms of my master's, I'm graduating soon. So I know that opened up some doors. So yeah, that's probably about, because I'm thinking that everything outside of God, have your way. Even with, a lot of people ask me, when are you going to write another song? God, there's a lot of songs that I do have that he's given me, but when he allows them, then yes.
And you release.
Yes, and it's business. I can speak on that. My desire is to expand, and I do believe that that's that God desires as well for me, and for us that are involved in it. So I'm looking forward to that. That being, I don't know when, if time, I'm looking for that. And it's more as well, expansion in my business.
Excellent. How important is leveling up, developing skills and abilities for a young person like yourself? How important would you say what advice you give in terms of leveling up to other young people?
Yeah, so it is important. I can speak from my perspective. Skills and getting further education has made me more well-rounded. Personally, I've learned a lot in a lot of different spaces. I've met a lot of people just because of my pursuit of higher education and skills. So that's definitely a huge benefit. Realize how much exposure shapes your mind, shapes your perception, shapes how you handle life situations. Exposure, and then exposure can be in many different areas, but especially exposure to education, to things you don't know, it could change your life. Yes. So I've experienced that in the practical sense, in the workplace, you need certain skills for certain roles, especially now. It means the time is a lot more technologically advanced. You see a lot of people now out and getting AI certification because AI is into everything. It's slowly becoming integrated into everything. So it's very important. Even if you don't have a bachelor's or an associate's or a master's degree or a doctorate, you can attain that can be even more effective in whatever role you ever. So it's definitely important.
Yes. I totally agree with you. Totally agree. Because, and you absolutely correct. The way the world is changing, the world is very it's an information age. And I would say, but there's so much information out there for you to develop your skill. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a degree. It doesn't have to be a full-blown degree. It could be a little mini course or a book. Develop it. Yes, leveling up.
Yes.
It's extremely important. Extremely important. So I like how you put that. So to wrap it up, when you look at what you've achieved, and you don't seem like a person just will sit in the corner. You seem very progressive, and I really admire that with you. And you speak a lot about God. How significant is your relationship with God in all those things that you've achieved? Because how did your faith in God get so strong the way it is? Because you, in almost all of your responses, you talk about God and talk about your relationship with Him, and you talk about your faith. How did you get to that level?
I got to that level because I was at the level of failure many times, and finding that the only way out, the only solution I had was God. The only shoulder I had to lean on was God. And I know that may sound simple to some. Well, okay, she's just saying God this, God that. But honestly, truly, genuinely, there's been times that I've been very low. I literally experienced the hand of God being the only thing that pulled me up out of certain seasons. So I can't imagine my way forward without God being ahead of me. And even say God be all around me. I even want to just know, for me, it is my personal experience, my personal walk. The things that I've went through, the things I've endured, taught me that I had to lean on God. And I think for different people and their relationship with God, you can speak about what your relationship with and your walk with God is like from a personal level, from your experiences, from your challenges. And God kind of shapes all of us differently for each the things He allows us to go through. So that's more so what I'm explaining. Like for my particular situation and my experiences, my life, God to have to depend on Him. Like for some people, they may know God as dependable God. Some people know Him in Jireh or in different seasons of life, may know Him intimately as different things. For me, I've learned to understand God as dependable God, like the one I have to depend on and rely on. Because even though I had an idea of how my life would go, the different twists and turns required being pulled up by God to continue on the path to where I know I should be headed. And then back to what I said earlier about purpose. When I discovered the purpose, like why I'm here to fulfill God on the earth, that shifted my mindset. I stopped pursuing things just for my personal gain or just because I wanted to do it. I became desperate to just fulfill whatever God's will is for my life at max. I know that will fulfill any desire, that would bless me tremendously. It would cover everything else for me on the back end. So my personal agreement and arrangement with God. He took care of me. I know He got me. I'm going to continue. I realized my way wasn't working. So it's
you. When you discovered your purpose, what advice would you give to other young people in terms of discovering their purpose? Who are searching, trying to figure out, why am I here? What am I here for?
Yeah, so it's definitely personal. You can't really put a one-size-fit-all answer to that question. I really believe it comes down to your relationship with Christ. I know I hear some people talk about discovering their purpose like way later in life. Some people discover it early. And it's not that it didn't exist. It just was the time that it was revealed to you or you gained understanding of it. So your purpose is literally rooted in your relationship with Christ and that level of understanding, Him revealing what's inside of you. Like the scripture says, we have a treasure in earthen vessels. Treasure has to be dug for. I would try to dig for the treasure before myself. Well, I think I need a shovel when He's saying, no, this is the tool you need. But in this case, He is the skillsman. He knows all things. So I think as you allow him to reveal like why you're here, like tap into your identity. And I believe we could find identity through the word, of course, through the word of God, the Bible. And just spending time with God, like I mentioned earlier, that I spent in worship, I find that those moments was when I really got that pouring out from God into my just to help me to understand my identity, like those quiet times. Some people sitting still with God may not seem effective, but I remember those years of trying to figure out, what am I doing? Why am I like, God, what's next? Those quiet moments would kind of, it wouldn't always give me the exact answer, but it would basically kind of steer me in a direction that is not self-hidden, so to speak. Because you just have this sense of hope and peace that, okay, that there's something else. There's something as I continue to press and pursue. And I was always perfect. Like, don't mind me saying, God, I met him a lot of time. Let me make sure I make that clear. God, I mentioned to y'all earlier, God had to help me in this walk. God had to really allow me to have certain experiences to realize I have to rely on him. So I wasn't always perfect. I messed up, but God was always there and nudging or coaching me along. So this is when I really got to understand my purpose. And then through the door God opened, I got to understand, okay, I think this is what I'm here for. Not a doctor, but to help people in a level that I probably can't help them in a hospital. I help them just in other ways with other skills that I have. Like maybe I have a good skill of relatability. Yeah. Maybe I'm able to identify with someone in a particular age group because of what I went through at that age. So I learned through different experiences that God put me here to also help people. And then, like I said, through the doors that he opened, I realized that, wait, I'm good with connecting with people that are different from me. I tend to connect well with people from around the world that have different cultures. That's a skill I didn't know I had. So open, I get to learn about myself, my purpose, and all of it unfolds. And it comes through obeying him and obeying the path that he has you on. And like I said, allowing him to just pour into your personal identity. Because if you don't know who you are, if you don't know your identity and your core, like who you truly are, it's easy for the enemy to tell you who you're not and try to tell you who you're not and try to make that your identity.
Yes.
So that's what I would say.
Yes. Thank you so much, Frankelle. You dropped a lot of nuggets for other young people your age and your age group and who want to discover their purpose, who want to start businesses, who want to travel the world, who want to write songs, who want to unleash the things that God has put in them. You've dropped a lot of wisdom and a lot of nuggets. Even though you're very young, you have a lot of wealth of knowledge wrapped up in you. So I want to encourage you, and again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
But I know the journey. I know you get a lot of stuff left, a lot more to do. You
just getting started, right?
So be encouraged. I thank you once again. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and the people that I know that you're going to bless through your experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being part of our session. Frankelle has dropped a lot of gems and a lot of wisdom. We appreciate her taking the time to bless us, and especially with a beautiful voice and the song a song that she has released. Please support Frankelle in her song and all of her endeavors in her business. We want to ask you to do that as well. So thank you for being part of the session. Please download the podcast on the various podcast medium, Apple, Spotify, all the other podcast channels, and also on the YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, and share the videos on the YouTube channel. That's how you support us. That's how you spread this wisdom to other young persons, to other people who are stuck and who need this valuable information to help them to get unstuck. So thank you so much for supporting us and supporting this podcast. once again, thank you. Bye. Bye, friends.